A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today. So, cheers. Now today I am looking at a graphic novel. This is going to be a spoiler-filled graphic novel review. Judge Dredd, The Life and Death of. This is written by John Wagner with Peter Doherty and Fraser Irving art. We get a lot of stories in here focusing on the character of Judge Dredd. Some of them in color, some of them in black and white. Now, for those of you who don't know who Judge Dredd is, I feel so sorry for you. But Judge Dredd is a character that first appeared in 2000 AD around, I want to say 1980, but I'm not entirely sure the year. It is part of the mythos of Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd, of course, being a police officer, so to speak, in Mega City 1. That is basically judge, jury, and executioner of criminals. Fantastic comics. Absolutely brilliant writing and art all through the run of the Judge Dredd books that were typically found in 2000 AD, but I think they kind of did some other comics. There has been video games. There have been role-playing games. For example, Judge Dredd and the Worlds of 2000 AD, the role-playing game. But most prominent in comic books. And the character of Judge Dredd is one of the the leader, I should say, of the 4 dark judges who come from Deadworld. Now, if you do not want this spoiled, I will just tell you and quickly show you the art in this is amazing. Through all of the stories, the art is just top-notch and really serves the stories well, which is what you want in a graphic novel like this. I highly, highly recommend it if you're a fan of Judge Dredd. If you're not a fan of Judge Dredd, you need to become a fan of Judge Dredd. That's all I'm saying. Go and watch the movie Dredd with Carl Urban. Absolutely awesome. Also, I know some purists out there are going to hate me for this. Go and watch the 90s Stallone Judge Dredd movie, because while that wasn't awesome, it's still pretty fun. So, there you go. But, if you want this spoiled, if you couldn't be fucked going out there and looking this shit up for yourself, once again, I pity you, but that is okay, because I am going to bring you all of these stories in their entirety, so you don't have to read it. So, stick around for the next episode of
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
Okay, so this is Judge Dredd, The Life and Death of. Absolutely fantastic cover. Fantastic character that I really wish they would put in a new Judge Dredd movie. I think that would just be awesome. We have a few stories in this collection. We have a beautiful homage to Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. And then we start with Young Death, Boyhood of a Superfiend. And we get these judges who have come to this chem pit. This flayed body is here and they are trying to ID it. And then we get the actual story. This guy is a reporter Mr. Skirter, I believe his name is. I could be getting that wrong. And he has been called because Judge Death wants his actual story told. So he comes to the apartment complex. He is greeted by Mrs. Gunderson, an elderly blind woman. And we find out that Judge Death has been her tenant. And she leads him into the room, and this guy is actually going to interview Judge Death. See if I can't get a better angle on this here. There we go. Beautiful artwork, as always, in these things. So he starts talking to Judge Death, and immediately there is tension, of course. Everyone in Mega City 1 knows who Judge Death is, one of the 4 evil judges. And we get a little bit of back and forth here, but that's not really the crux of this story. This story is all about how Judge Death actually became Judge Death. So we get all of this kind of stuff, but this is the real kind of meat and potatoes of the story, where Judge Death sees an ad that Mrs. Gunderson is looking for a tenant, and he goes, and because she's like pretty much blind, she doesn't know who he is, or she can't really make him out, but Mr. Peel, her other lodger, knows exactly who he is, and Judge Death ends up killing Mr. Peel. In this back and forth, the reporter Skirter basically is kind of being a little bit of a smartass, and Judge Death doesn't like that and kind of threatens him. And then gets into the other side story, which is investigating the death of this reporter. And it's linked back to this article, Judge Death Lives. Is Judge Death your next door neighbor? Which is the article the reporter published. I think he's a tabloid reporter. So now we're getting to the part where Judge Death talks about who he was before he became Judge Death. And he was this little boy called Sydney. And you can see here, Sydney has this dog, Woofy, and he's constantly making the dog jump to catch a ball, but the dog is under a table, and the dog keeps hitting his head. So he's basically torturing this poor animal. And his sister threatens to tell on him, and does. And he says that Woofy, the only time Woofy was a good dog was when he was dead. So he takes Woofy for a walk and throws his ball off the cliff, and the dog jumps into the ocean and dies. He basically poisons his sister, and because his sister told on him for abusing the dog, and his sister suffers from these relapses, and the mother knows there's something wrong with this kid, and he gets grounded. He gets told to wait in his room, stay in his room, and while he's in his room, he ends up shooting birds. His mother is talking to his father, and his mother's like, there's something wrong with Sydney. And the father's like, there's nothing wrong with Sydney. Sydney's fine. She doesn't want to be left alone with him. So the father says, I'll take him to work then. That way you're not going to be alone with him. And this is absolutely hilarious. This is the sort of humor you get in these books, this really dark, gritty, but maniacally funny side of the story. His father is a mobile dentist. And what he does is he anesthetizes patients, beats the shit out of them, tortures them. They can still feel pain. They just can't move. They're paralyzed. And he lets them go, and he trains Sydney in this kind of form of torture, this form of giving pain to these people under the guise of being a dentist. Eventually, his father can't kind of contain himself and actually starts to murder people. And this leads to Sydney turning his father in. The judges on this world, he comes from this place called Dead World. On this world, the judges are impressed with Sydney turning his father in because he's basically following the law. And they actually invite him to be the one to pull the switch at his father's execution. His mother and his sister have gone into hiding. He ends up joining the judges, and he frames one of his rivals, and as punishment, he suggests, why don't we, this class of up-and-coming judges, why don't we hunt him? And the kid's like, I didn't do anything. So they think it's a great idea, and they end up hunting this kid and killing him. At this point, they are still, it flicks back to the investigation of the death of this reporter, and they are trying to work out kind of what is going on. That's a bit better. So we get back to Judge Death, and at this point in his judge traineeship, every trainee gets a single day to be an actual judge, and they have to preside over these crimes. And this kid, Sydney, realizes that if someone is alive, they're going to commit a crime. So the best way to stop crime is just to kill people. So no matter what the crime is, loitering, things like that, he just kills them. He just kills everyone. He said the sentence is death. The thing with this is the rules of this judge for a day program is that their sentence can't be overturned. They have to show that they can follow the law, and by his logic, he is doing just that. This couple wanted to get a divorce, but then they realized what is happening, and they said, no, it's all good. We love each other. It's fine. Don't worry. We're all good here. And Sydney is like, well, the crime is wasting the court's time, and he kills both of them. So he gets called in to the chief judge, and he explains his reasons for doing so, and he gets branded as Judge Death. This is where he gets the moniker, and he gets the badge, which he wears with pride. He ends up tracking down his mother and his sister. They have gone into hiding. And he basically hunts them down and he kills them. And this is where we really see him starting to kind of transform. He chases his mother, and she basically falls off this tower. He gets a posse together. These will be the other 3 dark judges. I believe it's Fire, Mortis, and one other one whose name I cannot remember for the life of me for some reason. And they go after this death cult down in the caves underneath the city, and they find it's run by these 2 witches. At this point, Judge Dredd is kind of still hunting him in Mega City 1, and we flick back to these this death cult, these 2 witches, and they basically tell him that he's a hypocrite because he's murdering people who are alive because living people are going to commit crime, but he is also alive and he needs to be dead. So they basically force him. Well, they don't force him. He does it willingly. He takes this poison that withers his flesh and everything. He dies, and they bring him back. And the 3 judges that are following him want this to happen to them, and this is how he becomes Judge Death. And they basically go on their killing rampage, and what ultimately happens is the reporter writes the story, and Judge Death doesn't like it. He doesn't like how he is being portrayed in this reporter's story, and the reporter says, listen, it wasn't my decision, it was the editor, but Judge Death is having none of it, and he ends up killing the reporter. And that is it. That is the end of that story. Now, what did I think of this one? This was really, really cool, although I think it might have worked better if you didn't know the fate of the reporter from the beginning. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. The stuff about how Sydney becomes Judge Death, it's really funny. It's over the top violence, and this character is so twisted and so sadistic. It almost, I'm not saying it does, it almost detracts from the Judge Death that we all get to know. It kind of feels like this backstory wasn't necessary, but it's still cool that we have it. Okay, now we have Tea with Mrs. Gunderson. And this is basically Judge Death in his security prison, and him kind of we're getting a psychic look at why Mrs. Gunderson wasn't killed in the original story. Mrs. Gunderson, of course, the woman that he was lodging with. And so they're using these psychic ideas and impressions to kind of find out why Mrs. Gunderson was not killed. And they kind of bring her in and use her as kind of an interrogation tool, I guess you could say. Death becomes him. Okay. This is now Mrs. Gunderson has kind of turned the fact that she had Judge Death as a lodger into a, like, almost a ghost house amusement park thing where people come and it's this whole experience. They have an actor who's dressed up like Judge Death, and he kind of tries to scare people, and they're all like, oh, that's kind of cool. But we actually find out that he is, in fact, possessed by Judge Death, and he goes around killing people. And it turns out that a lot of people have played the part of Judge Death in this little kind of, as kind of an acting thing. And each one of them have either murdered people or committed suicide or done something along those lines. And Judge Dredd is kind of suspicious about it. It's very, very funny. A Night with Judge Death. This has a group of guys. The whole point is Mrs. Gunderson's apartment. You can spend the night in there. It's meant to be this kind of horror experience because that is where Judge Death lodged. And she set up things like a robot mannequin of Judge Death and a dummy of Mr. Peel, the lodger that he killed in the very first story. And this whole idea is you pay money and you go in there and you spend the night in this kind of supposedly haunted room. So a group of guys pay for this experience, but the whole thing is a stag night. Their friend is getting married, and they bring him in. He's completely naked. They dump him in the room. He's drunk as shit, unconscious, and they think it's going to be absolutely hilarious. The problem being, this happens on the night of the robot uprising. So the mannequin or the robot of Judge Death becomes part of that robot uprising, and this guy has been missing for 5 days. He's having hallucinations. He's freaking out, seeing kind of Judge Death everywhere. And when they kind of manage to find him via the woman that runs these kind of haunted tour guide stuff, this guy's dead. And the judges kind of work out maybe it was Judge Death, but probably it was just the robot uprising. This was a lot of fun. This was an absolutely hilarious story. Now we get into the black and white. My Name is Death. This is really, really interesting in that it kind of showcases Judge Anderson, who is a psychic, and she gets this flash of Judge Death in Mega City 1. She's actually on the moon at this point, and she races down to try and stop whatever Judge Death is going to do, tries to get word to Dredd and the other judges. And Judge Death actually goes to this orphanage, almost, house for juveniles, and he just basically slaughters them. The art is phenomenal. And he just goes on this killing spree rampage. And it's ultimately his main goal in this story is to draw out Judge Anderson, because he knows Judge Anderson, with her psychic ability, is the only one that can effectively hunt him. So we find out that Judge Death has been imprisoned in this crystal, and the crystal gets stolen by this other judge, and that judge is found dead. And when they go to the prison, the crystal that's there is a hologram. And then this guy who is paying for the crystal doesn't know if it's real or not, and Judge Death pretends that because the whole point is, in this crystal they can still move around and things like that, but Judge Death stays perfectly still. So this guy thinks this crystal is a fake, and so he smashes it, thereby releasing Judge Death. And that's how Judge Death goes on the rampage in the city. We get this in something of a flashback. Judge Anderson goes to meet Judge Death. They kind of battle, and she is pretty much taken out and kind of left in a coma. And from here, Judge Death just goes on an absolute rampage, trying to basically get back to his world is what his ultimate goal is. Now, the Wilderness Days sees Judge Death in the Cursed Earth, which is the land outside of Megacity 1. And if you don't know any of this stuff, please, people, go and read some 2000 AD. Even watch some of them, like the 2 Judge Dredd movies. The second one, of course, being better than the Sylvester Stallone one, but the Sylvester Stallone one still has some good moments in it. So do not discount it because he takes his fucking helmet off, which he shouldn't do because he's Judge Dredd, but that's beside the point. So he's in the Cursed Earth, and he basically does his thing, and he kills a whole bunch of people. On his way, he finds this guy who has a library where he starts learning a whole ton of shit. The people know that he is in there, and they want to block up the library, and it's basically Judge Death in the Wild West. This one, he goes to like Las Vegas where they're all gambling, and he starts killing people, and then he has this thing where people can choose how they die by spinning a wheel, and it's basically Judge Death at his absolute finest here. And what you get is it's kind of an insight into a very tricky character to write. He's kind of all powerful. He can possess people and all of that kind of thing. And then you just get them trying to kind of nuke him. And of course you get the beautiful covers at the end of the book. I love this. I love this cover so much. That is the life and death of Judge Death. Now, what did I think of this? I fucking enjoyed the art. The stories had that silliness that you kind of want in this kind of thing. They were fun. I didn't think the first story was particularly necessary. I loved the inclusion of Judge Anderson, a really fantastic character. All in all, if you are a Judge Dredd fan, you will love this. However, Judge Dredd does not appear in it for very long. His appearances are very, very limited. It is well worth a read. It is well worth checking out. And I would love to see more of this kind of thing with some of the lesser known characters from Judge Dredd and from 2018. It was great. So there you have it. That is the review of Judge Death, The Life and Death of. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It always helps. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. Just scream it out your bathroom window while you're taking a shit. But promote the channel. It really helps us, and we would be much appreciative of that. Until that time, everyone, I urge all of you to stay safe, have a fantastic rest of your day, and most important of all, read a fucking book